All right, let's see how far we get. We're close to the end here, guys. Anyway, all right, so what I wanted to say was that you can do a few things like we were doing in the Axon assignment, where let's rotate this. Yeah, and let's do the shear command. Transform, shear. Okay, we get this. These are still grouped. These have been transformed. So we can do a few things like we can select all of this for our make 2D, but we can hide certain things. So like say we hide the lines. Alright, so we can do transform, dimension, make 2D. Alright, so that's here. Already did that. Now we can unhide everything. And actually we could come in here and hide some of these things. To join the bench together. We can join the stair together. This will just make it easy for selection. So you may want to pre-join all of these things. Okay, so that's joined. That's joined. And I don't really need all the curves anymore, so I'm just going to turn some of these things off. And I'm just going to delete all this stuff. Okay, now I can turn it back on. Alright, so now I can kind of select each object individually. I have the wall here, I have the mesh, I have the stair. Yeah? Join that. There's my built-in bench. Alright, so what I can do now is kind of selectively just export individual objects and layers. So, you know, I'll turn off everything except the mesh. Okay, so I'm just left with this. So now I can do dimension, make 2D. Turn everything back on. I'm going to hide the mesh now. And maybe I'll hide the stair. And this. Make 2D. And I'll show you why this is useful. So I'll hide the things I've already sent. So the mesh and the hidden room. And maybe I'll just export these together. Good morning. Okay, so now I've got all these things exported individually. And, you know, I could group this thing. Right, so you see these things could be useful to kind of break apart your project. And in fact, so I could start with the wall. I could also just like export the wall without anything on it. So I could hide the stair. Maybe I want to do it. Okay, export this one. So you may want to export like each of the programs individually in relation to the wall. Maybe I should keep the wall in each instance and then the individual program. Okay. So dimension, make 2D. Alright, so now I've got all three. And I've even got this. Let's do it one more time. I'm going to hide the stair and the bench. Okay. Alright, so here are like my three programmatic parts. And the nice thing about this is I could come in here with a polyline, and I could start to trace this. Can you see me tracing that up there? Okay, I traced a continuous boundary around that, and I could hatch this now. Right, I don't necessarily want to use that pattern. I like solid. I think if I choose once I hatch it, I can come to properties and just change the color. Right, so I could hatch it red, or I could hatch it gray, whatever it is. And I may want to hatch each one of these individual programmatic elements a different color. And when I say color, I'm saying color here. And it could be in your future studios that you actually use colors. Try to use like grayscales in our studio. You can see pretty quickly I can start to highlight these things. Okay, and this is how I like to hatch, and I would encourage you to hatch this way. Make sure that you're setting a closed curve. It's really easy for the computer to just hatch inside a single curve. But if you're selecting inside a lot of overlapping lines, that's actually a complex computation, and it depends on how those curves are defined and how clean they are. And that may crash your computer. So I would try to be very clear about what you're hatching. Alright, so let's give this one a different color.
So in this action, like, we don't need to put all the detail, like, it could be just like the way the stairs are arranged and where the bench is.
I think start with that and then start to add your details onto it and maybe redefine them as well. So maybe start in this way so you have an idea. This could be a kind of program diagram. And then add your details, start to redefine the individual elements. So the bench may not be such a simple ledge. It may start to fold and bend with the details as well. But I was saying it in my studio the other day, the goal is that, the details influence the program, and the program influences the details. So it may be that as you push your stair up against these patterns, you need to redefine the slope of the patterns to match the slope of the stairs, things like that. All right, so let's hatch this last one. And again, you could do this in AutoCAD or in Rhino. All right, and we can even take, these things.
What about hatching the wall?
You could, yeah, you can hatch the wall. And so what I could do now is take all of these. I should really group all of these. Alright, so I can take this, move it to here. Right? Okay. And yeah, I agree. Let's hatch the wall. So I'm just going to retrace it with a polyline. And it should end. If I click on the end where I started drawing, the polyline command should just end, and then I know that it's a closed curve. All right, so here's something that you may want to start to play around with. Like if I change the color of this to gray or something. And I group this. So I'm going to move this over to here. Well, there, it kind of does it, but you should be able to, in AutoCAD you can right click and do hatch order and send things to the back, or layer order. I think it's the same in Photoshop and Illustrator. This looks like for whatever reason it's working it out. This one is in the background for some reason. Let's see if there's a layer order. Well, I don't know. Anyway, so take a pass at that. And what I would do is maybe try to hatch these with gray. I think gray is a nice hatch for line drawings. But there you go. I mean, but look, if you just started to add your lines on top of this, you'd start to be in good shape. The point of this is that, look, there may be better views of this. There could be some really compelling views that you may want to think about drawing also. But just as a kind of diagram and for consistency, try to do these 45-degree axons, okay? Make sense? Do you want to see your next assignment? I wrote it this morning. So let's look. All right, this is great. All right. Modular variations in breeze blocks. These are made of concrete. A friend of mine made these. And he basically constructed hexagonal molds, and he basically took like a hexagon and a hexagon, connected them with fabric, and then twisted the bottom one, and then put them back in the mold and filled it with concrete. And so each time he subtly rotated it a little differently. And it was the same part and the same stretchy fabric, but just by rotating it different amounts, you got different patterns of concrete and some kind of interesting openings. And so in some way I wanted to base this project on that. And then also, you guys know what breeze blocks are? Like you see them in the tropics. No? You don't know breeze blocks? They're very cool. You know what MIMO is? Miami Modernism. You heard the MIMO district? These are breeze blocks. They're very typical of Miami architecture and tropical architecture. Why are they called breeze blocks, Jonathan? Why are they called breeze blocks? Because before air conditioning, the only buildings that were habitable were the ones with cross ventilation. Like if you were inside a building in the tropics and there was no breeze moving, you would die of heat stroke, basically. So the planning principles of tropical modernism were like a thin building footprint. And why would you want it thin? So that you could have an opening on two walls and the breeze could pass through. And you would always feel a draft. And that produces cooling and evaporation. So I love these things. I try to take photos whenever I pass a building where I see them. And maybe you could start doing it as well and tagging me so I see some of these things. But I really like these. And basically, this is going to be our first studio-wide installation. Each of you is going to make one. These are some references. This is Erwin Hauer, who is this great German product designer. Maybe you've seen some of these. Here's how you spell it. So look at these. These are very cool. He did some like this. So look more complex. So we're going to do our own version of slightly more complex breeze blocks. Look at that one. Isn't that cool? All right. And what we're going to do is each of you is going to construct a 12 by 12 block. I can do the demo pretty quick. It's 9 o'clock. You want me to do the demo, or do you want to do it in the next class? Okay. We'll do it in the next class. Then, in the meantime,